Hello, brovs. We're back with The Witch and the Priest by Hilda Lewis, a novel based on the true story of Joan Flower, the infamous 17th century witch. And we resume with chapter 10. He was half lying in his chair beneath the great cedar tree. His thin fingers touched the warm earth. In the apple tree, a blackbird sang. He could see it, orange beak and fans spread of plum black tail. Its whole body quivered as the song lifted, arched, and dropped to the last clear note. At his back, a cold wind struck sudden, unexpected. He turned sharply. In the layered depth of the cedar tree, he caught a glimpse of her pale shadow, and peering again, heard her light laugh. "Do you come again?" he asked. "To spoil so fair a day with so dark a tale." "It is a tale that must be told to the end," Joan Flower said. She came from the darkness of the tree and dropped at his feet, skirts spread. "Then, since it is so," he sighed and folded his hands beneath the warm rug, "let us lose no time." She nodded brisk. "The sooner the better, so we shall both find our rest." There was ill will between my daughters now. There had always been jealousy. Philip envied Meg's fairness. Meg envied Philip's quick tongue and her iron will and the power one felt within her. But until that last Sabbath, they had behaved like sisters, standing together against all accusers. Now they were enemies, each for herself and herself for the devil. We had cast a spell to bewitch the little lord, you will remember that, and she smiled wickedly. Now we waited for news. We waited long and long enough. Philip was still at the castle and could not come down to us. The house was full. The king a-visiting, and no one in the village would speak with us. It was Joan Willamot sent us her spirit to give us the news. She that in the end betrayed us. Little Lord Roos lay sick. So fair a child, so bright. It was a thought. The old man spoke within himself. He turned suddenly, piercing her with the anger of his eyes. "So little a child, so good. You are woman as well as witch, Joan Flower. How could you do it?" I had seen sick children before. I had sacrificed my child's child. I was not likely to grieve for the child of my enemy. No one was your enemy except yourself. No one had done you any ill. All good folk were my enemy, and especially I hated Madame the Countess, with her righteousness, her cold, chaste goodness. I was glad of the wickedness we did, and the more my lady prayed for the child, and the more my lady wept for the child, the more glad I was. We played with her as a cat with a mouse. We would call a halt, and then, even while she was on her knees thanking her God, we would call down the sickness heavier than before. "And all the time," he said, and his voice came out in a whisper, "we did not know, we did not know. You did not know, and you did not guess. You were too high-minded, too virtuous, you and the Lord and the lady. But in the village they were beginning to guess. They whispered in knots by the pump or by the stocks. Yes, and in church too. They would stop their whispering if they saw me or my daughters. And up at the castle there was whispering too. Philip, when she could be spared, would come down, now raging, now laughing, to tell us how the servants dropped into silence as she went by, and how, more than once turning quickly, she had caught them crossing themselves. But no one told my lord, and no one told my lady. Useless. Neither he nor she would have listened then. She was their faith in those that served them, and even when the tales came to your ears, priest, I did not believe them either. You were women of my own flock. I had christened your daughters. 3 women I knew, or God forgive me, thought I knew, and 2 of them so young. How could I believe they had the power, or the will even, to torment a child, a sweet and innocent child? Yet the thing had been done by others before us, and will be done by others after us, done again and again. God forbid that such things happen. One knows, but does not quite believe. Not to this child, one says, not by these women. Why, I had seen you, all 3, kneel in my church, pray in my church. You were too simple, priest. To whom did we pray, and what words did we use? He knocked his hand against his breast. That such things can happen. Do happen, she corrected him. Happen again and again. not to the people one knows, not by the people one knows, and in his weakness and his grief. It was as though a child repeated the thing he wants to believe. They say, priest, that you are a wise man, subtle in argument, but you are no match for an ignorant woman. The devil lends you his wit, he said, but take care, the devil is a deceiver. You are right there, at least, she said, else I should not be wandering now between heaven and hell, but I never thought then of being lost between the cold stars. I thought only of the greatness of the reward, seeing I had brought 2 souls to the master, one, it is true, of no great worth. To my master, he interrupted, all souls are equal. My master is not such a fool. To him, souls are equal only in the counting of heads. But there are some he covets, and Philip was one. And over and above that, I had brought sickness upon the little Lord, and the next step would be death. So I was filled with joy, priest, such joy, priest, you might know, saving a soul or bringing one you love back from the gates of death. She was silent a little, then she said, tell me, priest, if your heaven is so sweet a place, why do you grieve when one you love is called thence? And why did you grieve for the little Lord? Because the flesh is weak, and the child's death untimely, and the manner cruel. Untimely, that is for your God to say. You believe that, surely. Yet you held, I remember, a service that the child might recover. Why did you not leave it to your gods? He made a little helpless movement with his hands. Your God did not listen. She spoke in a small bubble of laughter. He did not grant your wish, as our Master listens, granting us our prayers. Yet he deserts you at the end. It was I deserted him. Never forget that, priest. As for the end, it is not yet. That service you held, I was there. I am my daughters, all 3. I saw you, and I thought, these are no witches. No witch would dare to set foot in holy church, nor take the blessed wafer upon her tongue. You were wrong. We came into church when it served our purpose, and the wafer we took upon our tongue, but we did not swallow it. We kept it safe. The wafer, once desecrated, works the blackest magic. Yes, priests, you do well to groan, but you would do better to look at your congregation, not being deceived because a face is known to you. For here an old man, or there a young woman, yes, or even a child, is turning your prayers to mockery, and worse, yes. We prayed, my daughters and I, but behind our hands we laughed to see how you were fooled. God is not fooled, he said quite gently. Maybe you laughed too soon. She shook her smiling head. You say you were woman as well as witch. You say the witch's heart knows tenderness. Yet you sat there knowing the wickedness you had done and were not moved from your purpose. Not though you saw men and women weeping and praying. Are you moved from your purpose, priest, when we curse or weep? Or when we pray to our Master? Well, you held your service, and you wept and you prayed, but your God did not listen, and the child grew yet more sick. And all your prayers were no use. They were no use at all. Why did you not kill him outright? Why did you play with him, now catching him back a little way towards life, now hurrying him to the grave? You grow forgetful, priest. It was because we had still to win his soul for the Master. That was the thing you could not do. It was perhaps God's purpose that the child should die, but not that he should lose his immortal soul. No, she agreed, thoughtful. No, we tried, but we could not pry him loose from God. Philip would creep into his chamber while the nurse slept, and she would whisper in his ear, Would you be well again? You have but to say the word, and my Master will cure you. A word, a little word, or no word even, a nod only, and there will be no more pain. You will run free upon the cool grass, and you will play, and you will laugh for joy. But he cried out against her, and more than once she was forced to put a hand over his mouth, and each time she was so angered she could have strangled him where he lay. But she desired his soul. The child cried out against her so loud that she dared no longer come into his chamber. So we sent Rudderkin. He would sit upon the pillow. I remember, Samuel Fleming groaned. The child cried out, The cat! The cat! We looked, and there was no cat, and we thought it was the sickness. It was no sickness, priest. And when the child would not listen, the cat lay upon his chest so that he could not breathe. And the cat scratched him, face and hands. You thought it was the frenzy of his sickness. God forgive us, Samuel Fleming said. Then Joan Willamot tried. She sent her spirit, the little lady, all in green, and a face fair enough to win a little child. But not this child, not this child, she agreed. And so time wore on, and it was spring. And still within doors the child lay sick. Yes, sick to death, but he did not die, for we could not win his soul. And then it was summer, but still we could not win him. And so it came to September, and the corn standing thick and heavy and yellow, apples ripening, and the plums purple on children's lips and hands. September 1613. I remember it well. We all remember it, he said. In that late summer, the child died. He was silent for a while, then he said, he died patiently, putting his trust in God. But God, your God, did not listen. He listened. He saved that most precious soul. For eternal happiness, the child endured a little while of pain. Spoken like a priest, a Christian priest, a little while of pain. There was torment enough to break a strong man, but the child endured it, not with patience, perhaps, as you would like to think. This was a mortal child and no saint, but true it is, he never cried out against his God, though he cried often for God's help. Philip told me that, Philip stealing by his door to listen, Philip sending out her own shadow to stand by his bed while the nurse slept. A true witch to watch over her victim's pain. Samuel Fleming could hardly speak for anger and for grief. Joan Flower laughed. It was her pleasure and her duty. A little more and a little more, and maybe he would blaspheme against his God. You do not know God, Samuel Fleming said, whose nature is all merciful, even to such as you. Let any man cry out against him, being ignorant and tormented, and he will understand. But when a child cries out in pain, then there are tears on the face of God. If your God is so tender, why did he not wipe away the child's tears and his own at the same time? The battle of good and evil is always joined. God gives free choice even to a child. Priest, you are a fool. What choice to a suffering child? Yet there was a choice, he reminded her, and the child chose. Yes, she said and sighed, you are in the right of it there. The master was wrathful when the child died, and his soul safe from us forever. I remember the funeral, the early leaves drifting as we followed the coffin, the funeral coach all hung with black, and behind it, all in black, men and women walking, a long, long line. And we walked too, my girls and I. Already the wind was blowing chill, and I remember thinking, soon it will be winter, and then comes spring again. But the child lies locked forever in the black earth. He will never be free to run again. And then I thought, but he is free forever of the wide fields of heaven. And I was sad that we had not taken his soul. It was a great burying for so little a child, priest, gentlefolk from great houses both near and far, and servants from the castle, and all of us in Botsford and from other villages. Besides, your church could not hold us all. Those that could not come within stood without. But not you, witch, not you, Samuel Fleming said, bitter. There you stood, a decent woman in your black gown. My Lord Earl sent black gowns to all who had served in the castle, yes, even to Meg, though they had turned her away. He made no distinction. More's the pity, Samuel Fleming said. And I looked about, seeing women, yes, and men too, all noisy with their tears. And then I saw you standing there very quiet, and your face pale. I thought, they turned her from the castle, not for her own shame, but for that of her daughters. Yet she bears no malice, grieving for the death of the child. And this is the one they call witch. So I thought to show you some kindness, and I said, Joan Flower, there is room for you. And so I came inside, she smiled. While good women stood outside and wept, Joan Flower nodded brightly. I could not take my eyes off my lady, where she sat all hung with black. I could not see her face beneath the veil, but I knew it was soiled and spoiled with tears, and I thought, the devil shall wipe away your tears. But he never did. She was obstinate in her faith. I could not take my eyes from her, nor from the little one she carried in her lap. She had tied a black ribbon about his arm, and I thought, soon you shall weep for this one too. Samuel Fleming held out a hand as though beseeching her to stop. He could not endure in his weakness that the dark tale be unfolded step by step. But the thing happened, she nodded brightly, and we know it happened. I cannot be altered by a hair's breadth. All your silence cannot undo it. When I could tear my eyes from the lady, I looked upon the Lord. There were lines down his face as though you had taken a sharp stone and scored soft clay, but he gave no other sign. His eyes stared straight before him, and the girl, the little lady, sat by him in her black gown and her head very high, for all I saw of tears. What is this? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? I saw of tears, of their marks, I guess it says. She might have been a witch, a proud girl. She could have served the master well. When you prayed, priest, and when the choir sang, then tears fell like silent rain. Only the lady sat unweeping, and the Lord and the girl, and the little one chuckled, not knowing what it was all about. As for myself, I would have wept too, had I been able. For here was a soul lost to my master and bound instead for your cold heaven. O priest, for all you talk of love, your faith is loveless. As you understand it, and he looked at her with compassion, I see no joy in it, nor music, nor dancing, nor drinking, nor feasting. And there is no marriage, nor any delight of the flesh. Can you wonder, priest, that the God men worshipped before your Christ was born wins yet? Day by day, more souls and still more. The devil goes about the world seeking whom he may destroy, but it is God that wins in the end. He will win you too, though what he will make of you, he alone knows. No, priest, my master will win. He will win me back again, and take care, priest. He may win you also. He is stronger than God, and what he will make of you I know very well. You are learned, and you are steadfast. He will make you his captain and his priest in hell. I have no desire for such honors, he said dryly. We shall see. While the child was buried, that noble piece of flesh rotting like humbler folk, for death treats all alike, and life goes its way, and nothing can hold it back. Winter, snow and rain and mud, frost and cold, winds cutting like a knife, and then the sun again, green buds on trees, primroses in the copses, Philip up at the castle, Meg in the cottage with me. It was a fine life we had, we two, though to others it looked poor enough. I would not have changed it, not even to lie in my lady's bed. No, she smiled, wicked and sly. Certainly not to lie in my lady's bed, not with what we had planned for her. They hated us now in the village. I did not care, though, once I had wept. Now I welcomed it. I was filled with pride that folk feared me and crossed themselves when I went by. As for friends, I had them, and to spare, witches from far and near. From this coven and from that would come to us to eat and drink and to take their fill of love. You made the night unclean, your drunken songs, your filthy games. It was then you began to change, and your face showed it clear. I think the death of the child had left its mark. Which child, she asked, quick and impudent. That child, the child at the castle, the child you had known, perhaps. He had loved a little. Joan Flower, you began to grow old. She sent him a wicked look, but he went on. Yes, old. Lines, not lines that come for a good life, but ugly lines, lines of an ugly life. Could you not see, even then, that your master was a liar? Had he not promised you youth? Had he not promised you beauty as long as you lived? Priest, you are told in heaven you shall wear a halo about your head, and upon your shoulders great wings, and though you have never seen any man wearing his halo like a hat, nor spreading his wings like a bird, still you believe it is true. Your faith tells you that in heaven it is so. So with us, my hair was streaked with gray, the lines were in my face, my eyes sunk deep within the bone. That was how you, the unbeliever, saw me. But priest, what was it the master saw in those others at the Sabbath? They saw the round cheek, the fresh color, the sweet shape. They saw the dark curls, the bright eyes, the red mouth. As for this life of ours, what is it but a dream, as you have often said? A dream merely. Priest, the master fulfilled his word. Samuel Fleming shook his head. You were taken in the net of his deceit. You were old and ugly with wickedness. Good people hated you everywhere. I desired the hatred of the good. It brought you to your death, and now that you wander unhouseled, unhouselled, I don't know what that word is. Still you are obstinate not to be saved, and I am a frail and foolish old man. He lay back, eyes closed, lips moving in prayer. Yet, he said, and opened his eyes full upon her, God is strong and he is merciful, and in the end he will see to it that you are saved. Say you so, priest? There came to him the distant sound of light and mocking laughter. The wind had freshened so that he shivered, and rose and went within from the emptiness of the summer garden. And that will conclude chapter 10. Chapter 11 awaits. I should be able to get through a few more chapters before we move on to these. Goodbye, bruv. Good boy.